This morning, we are going to guide you through the PFOS and BEP guidance. But before Stefan takes the floor, I'd like to introduce you to the new guidance package that has been developed in the last year and a half. For your information, the NIP package consists of several documents. You have a first set or type of guidances that are general ones, and they relate to the developing of the NIP, to the action plan costing, and to the socioeconomic assessment. Two of the three have been revised. In particular, I'd like you to bring to your attention that the titles are not exactly as they are here. The titles are just for a small nickname to better understand the topics. The first one is not only for developing a NIP, but also for updating and revising one. The second one, in particular, what was updated is the action plan costing. And I cannot make the link. Do you know why? Maybe you can do it. Okay. The idea was to show you some of the hints within the NIP package and the new developments, but I think the platform is not allowing me at this moment to do so. So I'll tell you here that the tree stands because this guidance consists at the end of several decision trees. So the idea is to guide you through the different commitments and mandates that the Stockholm Convention has in a way easy to understand and easy to follow. So if you are thinking of PFOS, for example, it will tell you that there are acceptable purposes and specific exemptions. They will mention which one are those, and it also will tell you the different steps you have to take to meet the commitments. The socioeconomic guidance, the one that it is at the last in this general guidance part, has not been revised. The Conference of the Parties requested Secretariat to update this guidance based on the comments received by parties. No comments have been received so far. So if you have visited the guidance, use it, or just have a look at it and have some comments, we welcome you to send them to us. The second part of this NIP package consists of two main parts. The one is the inventory part, and the second one relates to the action plan development itself. Two guidances were developed, one for PFOS and one for PVDEs. Some other webinars were done to explain a little more about these guidances. I will not go into details at this moment. Then there are some other guidances related to the action plan development, including the BAT and BEP for PFOS and the BAT and BEP for PVDEs. These two guidances are part of a set of guidances. In particular, for PFOS, it relates to production and use, and for PVDEs, refers particularly to recycling and waste disposal of articles. The previous BAT and BEP guidance are referring to Annex C chemicals. PFOS and PVDEs are not Annex C chemicals. PFOS is Annex B, and the brominated ones are in Annex A. The other things that have been developed are some considerations for labeling of products and articles. As you know, Stockholm Convention refers in certain parts to labeling, but specifically does not indicate this as a mandate or as a commitment for all the POPs there, but for PCBs there were some decisions on how to not on how to label, but the indication of labeling. Then there are two other guidances, one related to customs, to import and export of POPs, and it contains some tables indicating what are possible movements and which are not possible movements in general, and it is aiming to address some concerns that customs officers might have, and also government officials. And the last one, the regulatory framework to enable regular monitoring of products and articles, refers to the life cycle of these chemicals and tries to bring to the attention of those in the different stages of the life cycle to consider the elements to the management of the POPs. Besides this NIPS package guidance that I have been walking you through, we have supporting documents. The supporting documents are, I'm going to explain it better in the next slide, refer to certain information that it is good to have when thinking, planning, making inventories. And the additional guidance part refers to those already existing guidance that are still very practical and useful to the update of the NIPS, for example, the PCB ones. So supporting documents, here you have the list of supporting documents, and the first one is the terminology one. This document is not a definition document, but it is trying to explain the different terms used through the guidance, like what is a product, what's an article for the Stockholm Convention, what is a chemical, what's a mixture. There are also other documents that are summary tables of the legal obligations for different chemicals, and there is also a database, and the database is the way to quickly identify maybe trade names for PFOS, those companies that are using that chemical, but not only for PFOS, but also for other chemicals that are listed under the Stockholm. And if you go through all these supporting documents, then you'll find some hints. These documents, of course, are not to follow. They are only consultation type of documents. The other set I indicated before is referring to those resources that are already available and have been available for some of them for a long time. The first ones are just step-by-step guidance for the NIP update. This is a 2011 document. And there are some other ones that are thematic. Here I just brought to your attention the ones related to PCBs. And for those of you that have been following Stockholm or those that have worked with PCBs, these are the old guidance documents. They are not updated so far, so but they are still a good basis to develop inventories and do work. Also, when updating your national implementation plan or making new considerations towards the implementation of the Stockholm Convention at your national level, Annex C chemicals, dioxin, furane, and pentachlorobenzene are to be considered. The set of guidances that are already available are these colorful booklets here that you can see there, and also the toolkit, the standardized toolkit for dioxins and furanes. But besides that, Basel Convention has also developed some guidance on guidelines for the waste disposal of POPs. At this moment, this is being revised by a small intersessional working group, which is working on the topics that needs some kind of revision or addition. Last but not least, a set of webinars have been done and will be done. These are the titles of the webinars. More information, as afterwards Stephanie will indicate, will appear in the website, and also some of you might be receiving as OCPs invitations to join. So where can you find, you might ask yourself where to find all these documents. Today, they are not still online, but by the end of this week, you will find them going into this link here, and then opening this window, going to NIPS, and there you'll see guidance. You see under NIPS overview, NIPS submission guidance. Under guidance, you will find all these documents that I have been indicating. The new ones, and also quick links to the old available resources that were developed previously. So thank you very much for listening this part of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for your informative presentation. I will now give the floor to Stefan to make his presentation.
Thank you,
Stefan, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Jacqueline. Stefan Posner is my name. Good morning to every one of you. Been drafter and still is, because this is an ongoing process for this BAT-PEP guidance document on PFOS and related substances. And there's a very long title here, so I won't read it, but you can read it for yourselves here. First of all, I would like to introduce the very complex chemistry of PFOS, and this chart you see is not only PFOS or related substances where the carbon number is 8, you have the PFOS chemistry called the electrochemical fluorination process, and are mainly fluorosurfactants and as polymers. So I won't go deep into that, but as Jacqueline mentioned, there are supporting documents, and there is an OECD list where currently 160 PFOS and PFOS-related substances on that list as a supportive information what kind of chemistry we are dealing with. Well, in general, the starting approach on the best available technology and best environmental practice could be said as the BEP approach is a better understanding of your specific PFOS chemistry, because there are a diversity of uses for PFOS and related chemicals, and of course, those processes involved is the best available technology approach. And one aim with that is, of course, to improve environmental and health awareness and concern in your company's daily activities. And, of course, BEP particularly provides a better understanding of the diversity of your PFOS use in your particular sector. The scope of this guidance document is to provide a state-of-the-art BAT and BEP approach on PFOS and related chemicals. And as already defined in the Stockholm Convention, BAT is the most effective and advanced technology available on the market with a practical suitability for those particular techniques involved where PFOS and related chemicals are applied. The best environmental performance describe the most appropriate environmental controls, measures, and strategies of people who work there and the approach to those technologies involved in the PFOS processes. The guidance document itself is part of someone here, 5 sections, and not going into detail in every part of the sections. The first section is introduction to the guidance document, the purpose of the guidance, and the structure of the document. Section 2, it describes a number of processes where PFOS is used and all related substances, and also some consideration of alternatives where applicable in these processes. Section 3 introduces a general guidance on principles and descriptions of BAT-PEP for those where PFOS is used. Section 4 is a specific guidance on BAT-PEP for specific processes. And last but not least, Section 5 is the best environmental practice for the management of PFOS. In very short terms, I mean, this is described in supported document what PFOS actually is, but very short, it's a fully fluorinated substance. It could be in the form of an acid. PFOS itself is a strong acid. It's a salt, or it's in the form of fluoropolymers. It's a very big family of chemicals, as I showed you in one of the first slides. It's very persistent, actually one of the most persistent chemicals we know. It has substantial bioaccumulation and biomagnifying properties, and it also has a tendency to bind to proteins in our bodies. It's a long-range transport chemical that's known for a number of years. It's been found in the Arctic area. As said earlier, there are a number of uses, a big number of uses for PFOS, and those mentioned on this slide are a few of these uses that are also described in the mentioned in the Stockholm Convention. Where PFOS-related substances are used, PFOS appears as a degradation product and it could appear in the environment and also in our bodies. A number of these uses are minor or some are major. And as mentioned earlier, it's the uses are divided in different categories, since PFOS represent a number of acceptable purposes and specific exemptions, it's still used in several countries. And the reasons for that is that PFOS is sometimes very hard to replace, or there are no commercially available alternative on the market, or the phase-in for alternatives has not been done. It takes some time to do that, and for that reason, PFOS is still used on different levels within the scope of the Stockholm Convention. The acceptable purposes described are a number of purposes for the electronic industry, mainly as a strong surfactant. We have it as for metal plating in closed loop systems, for insecticide, used against leaf cutting ants, and last but not least for firefighting foams, which is a high volume use. And these purposes are, since they are acceptable, these are ongoing uses in several parts of the world. Then we have the specific exemptions where under certain conditions PFOS can be used. And there are a number of applications in the electronic industry. We have metal plating, which is as an open application. We have insecticides controlling imported fire ants and termites. We have in oil production, where you want to get the last drop of oil from the ground. Since PFOS and related substances are very efficient surfactants, they can really penetrate through the ground. And of course, as coating additives and applied on carpets, leather, textiles, and paper. I give you some examples of for some acceptable purposes how the BAT-BIP is described, just to show you, illustrate how this guidance document is written. First, we start with the major volume use, firefighting foams, and the particular use where fluorosurfactants are used are called aqueous film-forming foams, abbreviated AFFFs, and it's generic term for firefighting foams where for specific uses on flammable liquids called Class B fires. AFFF doesn't necessarily mean that PFOS is involved in the firefighting foam. It means that some sort of fluorinated surfactant is involved, and they are in the range of some percent of the total content in those firefighting foams. If you have the abbreviation AFFF, certainly some sort of fluorosurfactant is involved, and sometimes PFOS. There are two categories of firefighting foams depending on the kind of fire that is occurring. You have the Class A fire with the solid combustibles and the Class B for flammable liquids. AFFFs are mainly used and should be used for Class B fires. And the Class B foams that are applied for these flammable liquid fires could be divided in two separate categories: synthetic foams, AFFFs, and protein foams that abbreviated ARFFFs. The BEP approach for firefighting foams is that, of course, since there are two ways to use the firefighting foams. We have the accidental, of course, when the fire occurs, and you have the training when you do regular training with the firefighting foam. And of course, the question is, if you have a Class A fire, you can always ask whether these particular firefighting foams are needed, the FFF. And due to the original basis, they are not appropriate for Class A, but for Class B fires. For Class B fires, there are, of course, always the question to ask which are the most efficient and the most appropriate firefighting foams to use. In an accidental situation, you take what you have, but for the training session, when you prepare to prevent fires, those considerations, which kind of firefighting foams are to be stockpiled, might be considered. A very strong recommendation when firefighting foams are used or are to be stockpiled for accidents is to use the latest available products on the market. And this has, of course, some connection to the use of PFOS or the legacy use of PFOS in firefighting foams. There are, in some cases, alternatives that could be used. That measures for firefighting foams means, of course, to minimize the exposure and emissions to environment and humans. One very important point here is the training with foams, and for training foams, it's very important that fluoro-free foams are used to prevent major emissions to the environment, and of course that the whole equipment works and they have a good control of unintended releases and a good pickup of waste to the environment. So the baseline of this slide is to have a really good control of the systems, of the fire controlling systems, and of the releases and waste that is produced when these foams are in action. Another major use is electroplating, where electroplating describes when you treat, you put a metal surface, an oxidized surface on either a metal or a plastic. So the one subgroup in the electroplating is what we call metal plating. So electroplating, the number of activities when this is processed, and currently for the electroplating bath, it's a chromic acid, 6-chrome. It's really the only alternative, the only chemical that is actually applied at the moment is a PFOS-related chemical, which it's a stable foam in the chrome bath to avoid emissions, and eventually, if really bad conditions occur, explosions in this process. The electroplating is a major volume use, and there are approaches to replace 6-chrome to 3-chrome, etc. But for hard chrome plating, still hexavalent chrome is used, and the PFOS-related substance is still used. That measures for electroplating includes new technologies where the trials to replace hexavalent chrome with trivalent chrome. Another approach is of course to, when open applications are applied, then closed loop systems may be instead applied, and this already happens on the market. There are some alternatives to PFOS as mist suppressing to create these stable foams for hard metal plating, but these are emerging technologies at the moment. But the recommendation in a batch manner is to develop the alternative chemistries to make these stable foams in the chrome baths. And of course, for the waste and collection of these waste streams, it's very important to have a very strict control on the waste streams, especially for those electroplating processes that have an open application. One other major use with PFOS-related substance, sulfluramide, is to fight insects, ants, and this is a major open use. And there are a number of alternatives on the market, but in the sense of alternatives, it could be it's a bit discussed in this guidance document. Anyway, the major use are definitely PFOS-related substances as described the chemistry a bit, sulfonamide on this slide. The best measures for these insecticides, the sulfluramide, is of course to minimize the application of this sulfluramide, but with the assessment of the infestation of these ants in the particular areas where sulfluramide is supposed to be used. So still, again, the baseline is to have a very strict control and to use the minimum as possible with the expected efficiency of these chemicals, and to have a good monitoring and of course protection conditions, which is the BEP for those people involved in the handling of these chemicals. Then we have this specific exemption where PFOS is still used under certain conditions, and this is the impregnation of carpets, leather, apparel, textile, upholstery, paper, and packaging, where that include also the, at least included in many parts, the food packaging. And this is a coating technology where fluoropolymers are applied. You produce grafted fluoropolymers. And today there are parallel to the PFOS use, legacy or current, there are other fluorochemistries involved. And as described in the guidance document, these legacy chemistries or those old chemistries where PFOS is a part of is partly or replaced by other chemistries, so-called short-chain chemistry, fluorochemistries. The baseline is to get the right effective oil and water repellents, and there are a number of alternatives, which is the part of the BAT approach. But still, the baseline is that the PFOS chemistry at some parts is still applied to achieve these water and oil repellency properties. The BAT-BIP approach for coating and impregnation items is to, as efficiently as possible, apply this chemistry into the application. And this means that you don't use the surplus chemicals, meaning that you have a good durability and the effective properties as long as possible. And this means that the regeneration of the properties on the grafted polymer surface is to be in a way that it can be very good and sufficient durability and lifespan of this project without adding new chemicals. That would be some sort of surplus. And the way to add these chemicals should be in a way that it's a minimum application, meaning to avoid appliances like spray applications. The electronic industry, the PFOS is only used, apart from those uses presented in the slides before. In the electronic industry, the PFOS and related substances are only in the production of the components used. You don't find them in the end products. And the baseline for using these strong surfactants in the electronic industry is as mist suppressants to avoid humidity in the electronics. That, of course, could cause a shortcut in the destroyed electronics. And there are a number of applications here, hundreds of different parts, where the predominant one are for semiconductor and photographic industry use. That bit for the semiconductor industry is along the production chain, how to handle the PFOS, avoid leakage, avoid surplus use, have a good labeling on containers, and have a good bookkeeping on the PFOS used along the whole production chain, meaning essentially safe handling all along the production chain. For the photographic industry, the PFOS-related substances as a surfactant is used to avoid electrostatic properties and to remove any kind of dirt particles. It's a very clean process, and with the strong and very efficient surface properties of these surfactants, it's used for very efficient surface treatment in all those points you can see there. And as a baseline as for the other purposes uses, the BAP approach for the photographic industry is, of course, to have a very strict control of the flow, storage, refill, transport of PFOS along the process. So you don't have the leakage, the uncontrolled waste flows, etc. There is in the case PFOS and related substances are actually used, there is a stringent control all along the process of this chemical. Thank you very much.